Pueblo may no longer be able to support the 11-day annual event. According to city officials, the fair at its current location is losing money each year and depends on tax subsidies. Ben, we seem to hear about this almost every year, at least every other year. Have we reached the end of the road with Pueblo hosting this, or is this normal problems that we always hear about the state fair?
You know, this has been more than every other year. When I saw the story, I didn't make the committee meeting, but when I saw the story, I smiled because I think it was 2001 when I was on the Joint Budget Committee, I actually recommended the state creating either an authority or an enterprise to combine the National Western and the State Fair. The reasons being they were both struggling financially, both had core peak seasons at opposite ends of the calendar, January and then July and August. And it seemed that if we wanted to pay homage to the agricultural and Western heritage of the state through these institutions, then it was time to make a commitment to fund it and finance it to help Pueblo and the other private institutions that support these vehicles. This is not a surprise. Years ago, the city of Pueblo, in conjunction with the Pueblo School District and the state, floated bonds to build the arena that I think is actually owned and operated by the Pueblo School District. The idea was to allow a larger venue for concerts and performances in conjunction with the state fair. This has been going on for decades. And at some point, we need to decide if we want a state fair, and is the state fair, not the Pueblo fair, then the people of the state of Colorado need to decide to pony up and step up and sustain it. The National Western is getting assistance from the state, from the city, from a bunch of other organizations, and that is fine. But if you really want to maintain it, you've got to support it. And I would argue that moving it from Pueblo is not the solution. The solution is to find a way to make it work in Pueblo. That's its history, that's its culture, that's sort of its basis, and if we really want to sustain that part of our heritage, we've got to do it there. I'm glad the Legislative Committee and others are looking at this because it's time to have the frank and intentional conversation about whether we want it or whether we just want to talk about wanting it.
Ben, should it stay in Pueblo? Should it come up here to the National Western Stock Show Complex? Should it go away?
I think it should stay in Pueblo. I think we should keep it. I think it's an important part of the Western heritage that we have. Their mission is to help young people connect with agriculture and sort of sustain and build those communities. And I think that's a vital part of who we are as Coloradans and what makes up our economy and what makes up our brain density here. We have a lot of expertise in ag and bio and food, and that's a big part of it. I think, you know, as I was researching this subject, I actually spent quite a bit of time looking at Frontier Days, which is another big Western event that happens 112 miles away from Denver, as opposed to 102 in Pueblo. They have a different format in terms of some of their programming. They tend to have high-end country music singers and those sorts of things. You know, I think really it comes down to how we manage it, how we look at it, and getting everybody engaged. I think that, you know, Pueblo recently did turn down, the voters rejected a ballot initiative there to have I think a half a cent tax to help fund the state fair in part. I think, you know, with more help from the state, a more clearly defined plan, maybe going back to the voters of Pueblo again, we can find a way to better sustain it where it's not relying on subsidy and not losing money year over year.
Patty, what do you think?
Well, yeehaw, heading to Cheyenne tomorrow. But I've been to the Pueblo State Fair recently. It is great. First of all, it can't move because then you wouldn't be able to get the passkey sausage sandwiches, right, which is a hallmark of Pueblo. Pueblo has gone through so many tough times. It's making a comeback, in part thanks to marijuana. And this is also a business you would like to keep there. Although I know the economics are tough, you can imagine right now the National Western is trying to figure out how they can corral this. Better would be to take the same pie-in-the-sky economic studies that are being done for National Western, have those same people plan the state fair in Pueblo. They'll make it look good.
Certainly the Optimist Club. David, wrap it up for us.
My grandfather won numerous medals for hog breeding, including first places at the Iowa State Fair. State fairs are important economically for a state for the improvement of agricultural science, and they therefore should take place where agricultural people live and not in Denver as some tourist attractions so people who aren't participating in agriculture can come and look at a cow for the first time in their life. Many of the state fairs' problems are inflicted from outside. Their energy costs have gone up from $500,000 a year to $1.2 million. That is purely the fault of the Ritter ETC anti-energy agenda of jacking up prices for electricity users for the benefit of eco feelings.